Hey everybody, Erin here. I'm on with Brodie Welche. Welcome, Brodie. She is a licensed acupuncturist, board-certified herbalist, Chinese medicine expert, a group coach, and self-care strategist. We connected on her podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it'd be really cool to bring her on and share some of her own expertise about migraines and acupressure points and energetic root causes for why we get migraines and things like that are just fascinating. She's got her own practice in Corvallis, Oregon, the Life and Balance Acupuncture Clinic. And in addition to her clinical practice, she helps caring, high-achieving women put themselves on their own to-do list so they can trade stress and burnout for energy, joy, and vibrant health. She's helped thousands improve their digestion, sleep, mood, dial in a regular body-mind practice, and step into the next version of themselves. She's the creator and host of A Healthy Curiosity, a podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world, which is what I was mentioning earlier, and we should probably post a link for that.
Yes.
As well, so you can check that out because that was a fun interview. But thanks for coming on, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about migraines and what you've seen work and what you've seen help people.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you, Erin. We did have a fun time chatting for my podcast, and I love teaching people about how they can think about their lives and the energetics of what's going on in their body differently so that they can help themselves.
Mm-hmm. So I'm especially interested in this. You mentioned there's like some energetic reasons why we get them, which isn't something I really know anything about or have thought much about. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So the first shift that I encourage people to make when they come into my office for a treatment is to stop thinking of themselves as a sack of meat and to start thinking of themselves as a living field of energy. Because both are true from a physics standpoint, right? It's just whether we think of ourselves in Newtonian physics or Einstein's world of physics. And so we know, like, if we're in Einstein's world, matter and energy are the same thing, and they're converting into one another all the time. And in Chinese medicine, we conceive of matter and energy basically as yin and yang, right? There's sort of like that if we're all one big field of energy, just some of us happens to be substantial and some of us happens to be insubstantial, that there's ways that we can organize this energy differently, and different ways that different tendencies and lifestyle and diet and various factors can contribute to how this energy flows. So when someone comes in for acupuncture, we're using points on the body to help direct the flow of energy, or qi, along these pathways that we call meridians, and to achieve balance in the body. But typically, so if we think about yin and yang as like the basic subdivision of qi, of all that is, that just to define those terms a little bit, yin is like, it's sort of, if we think about the yin yang symbol, like everybody's probably familiar with that black and white swirl with the little bit of the black and the white and vice versa. So that's basically a model for the universe. And so, and how all life works, which is basically that in this world of duality, there's pairs of opposites that balance one another and support one another, right? So we can't have hot without cold. We can't have inside without outside. We can't have up without down. It's like that, just basically anything that we can conceive of that that opposites balance one another, but also support one another. So in terms of our daily lives, to make this real for people, like everything in our bodies that is like, that's first of all substance, anything that which cools, moistens, and nourishes, we can consider yin. Okay. Versus that which animates and warms and transforms and protects and is external and is a process, we can consider yang, right? And so, and just like, so in our daily lives, like yin is the nighttime, yang is the daytime, right? Like activity, yang, rest, yin. And we live in this society where it's all about speed, productivity, like getting as much done as possible, cramming, going as fast as possible, being as busy as possible, all this different, like moving from thing to thing and being outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused, that we're running ourselves into the ground. So what do we have more of in that situation, right? It's clearly a yang, too much yang, not enough yin, right? Do you encounter many clients who are like, wow, I just don't have enough to do. Like, I don't have enough stimulation going on in my life.
Generally, no.
Yeah, right. So like, it's it's like virtually no one's problem that we're not stimulated enough, or that we're not focused on,
If
like,
you're not, then you just like turn on your phone and you're like
exactly, like our world does not lack for you being hyperstimulated and hyper externally focused. And so what can happen with yang energy? Yang energy can rise up to the head. And so when we think about and different, like, obviously there's yin and yang of the different organ systems, right? We've got yin and yang of the liver, of the heart, of the, et cetera. All the different organ systems have need to be balanced with the forces of yin and yang within them. But just in general, if we just look at life, most people have way too much yang, not enough yin. Most of us need to be more grounded, have more stability and more routine in our lives, to get regular sleep, to eat at regular times. And just that idea that, like, in Chinese medicine, it's the liver that has to do with the energy of wind. It corresponds with the wood element. So like the wind through the trees is like that activity that, like that wind is change, it's stimulation. It's also this upward, outward direction, right? That trees move upward and outward. That's the direction of growth. That's the direction of leadership. It's the direction of driving and striving and trying to achieve, that so many people have, like, too much of that energy going on. The liver and gallbladder are this partner. They're a team that work together. And so if the liver qi gets stagnant or in excess, a lot of times we start to feel the symptoms in the gallbladder channel. And the gallbladder channel is very long, but it goes just through the side of the head, or kind of around. It makes several passes over our head. It relates to the back of the neck, the tops of the shoulders, and then it kind of zigs and zags down the side of the body to terminate at the fourth toe. But basically, like, if we look at what the characteristics are of a migraine, is that so often it's pain on one side of the head. It's there's a feeling of throbbing, right, of pounding, that kind of thing. That's wind. That's excess yang energy in the head that isn't grounded, right? So a lot of times what an acupuncturist will want to do is direct that energy back down, so that we can ground it, so that it's not harassing somebody's brain and bouncing around up there. And so, like, granted, like, that can sound like a really sort of like woo-woo energetic, like, metaphor. It's a metaphoric interpretation of what's going on. But I can tell you that as people establish more of the yin energy and get sort of like focus on, for example, transitions, right? The liver is responsible for transitions and timing. So when we feel time compressed, when we feel like there's not enough time to do something, right? Already the shoulders get tight, the neck gets tight. There's sort of this bottleneck effect that prevents the free flow of energy up and down from the head. So a lot of times it's like just learning to breathe, just learning to be in the moment, having more time to get places and like fewer things to transition from can make a huge difference, right?
Or giving yourself permission to be late. I mean, nobody wants to be late, but I used to have such a hang up about being on time that I had to like say, it's okay if once in your life you end up being late. And I'm usually still not late, but like just not worrying about it so much.
Right. Exactly. And if you can just decide that, okay, I'm just going to be 5 minutes early to everything to take out that sense of time compression, then so much the better. The other thing is just basics, like bedtime, like just making sure that we're going to bed early, that we're getting up at the, around the same time each day, just creating that rhythm. Like nature, all of nature is in a rhythm, right? That the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of the day, which, by the way, right, like just this year, Nobel Prizes were awarded to the scientists who were figuring out circadian rhythm medicine. Like, what is it in our DNA that hooks us up with nature? And so this is all very much like modern science is validating what Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine have been talking about for thousands of years. So it's basic, right? And it's really easy to do that. Isn't it?
One thing I wanted to ask there is, you mentioned like excess energy and then also a stagnant energy, kind of in the same breath. Is there like a big difference about what's happening?
Not really. I mean, basically, like there's, in terms of like looking at the ecosystem that is you, a Chinese medicine practitioner is going to try to put all the pieces together. So like what energy, like what organ system is in excess, what is deficient? Is there too much heat? Is there too much cold? Like what's going on? Is there too much dryness? Is there too much moisture? Is there, what's the nature of what's going on?
So and then because it's stagnant, it's because it's not moving
Right. So
properly. That's why it gets built up and then
exactly.
like that.
So basically a stagnant chi is a condition of excess. It's basically it's too much energy, it's in the wrong place. It's not flowing like it should. And so it's not like so yeah, so basically it's you can imagine kind of like if energy is supposed to flow like a river, that if the river gets a log jam in it, the water starts to back up on one side and it creates this kind of a it floods that side of the river, and so it's like it sort of nothing's getting through to this other side. So on one side you've got the fish flopping around for lack of water, and the trees are dying, and on the other side you've got this massive backup of water. And so the role is how can we remove that log jam so
Mhm.
that the excess is eliminated, but also the deficiency is eliminated, and we just have this smooth flow of energy such that everything in the body gets what it needs.
And do people with migraines usually benefit more from going in when they're having an active episode, or is this more of in between?
No, I think Chinese medicine's real strength is on prevention. And
Mhm.
there's actually been plenty of studies. It's actually migraines is one condition that a lot of insurance companies will pay for acupuncture for, because there's been so much good data that about I mean, I think that, and again, like I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but just because there's so many different studies I could be looking at, but that it can definitely prevent the frequency of migraines as well as lessen the intensity of them. And typically when I work with clients on this, like we start with lifestyle, right? We start with like sort of what's going on, and we look at diet as well. Like if someone's eating a lot of inflammatory food, that can certainly contribute. But usually it's a lot of times it there I don't yeah, it's very common that when we look at where the body is habitually holding on to tension, like often neck and shoulders, and often emotions, right? Like all these things, stress is major in terms of contributing to migraines. So we'll usually start there. And I'll absolutely not only do acupuncture on the person, but usually prescribe a Chinese herbal formula that will help either nourish the yin or descend down the yang, or whatever it is that's personal to that particular individual, but also teach them acupoints, and sometimes prescribe essential oils, or like things that people can do on their own to
Yeah.
keep things at bay. And so like peppermint oil, for example, I like
Oh, I like
when my husband got his first ever migraine,
that.
he was having like intense pain. I put peppermint oil in a few points, and it cut it from like a 10 out of 10 pain down to like a 4 really
Wow.
quickly. And it's
Yeah.
like peppermint oil is pretty volatile, so it does need to be reapplied pretty frequently. But it is the kind of thing that like I saw what a massive difference that made. And certainly with patients, it's like I definitely have patients who just like flat out don't get them anymore. And of course there's other like for example menstrual migraines, that there's a hormonal component. Chinese medicine practitioners can often really excel at treating kind of the hormonal imbalances, because we look at the body really differently and we look
Yeah.
at it holistically. So a lot of times all these things can kind of come into balance all at once. So it's not like you have to it doesn't become more complicated to also be treating for insomnia and hot flashes and stress and like all this other stuff. It's like
It's
the
tied
Chinese
in.
medicine person's
Yeah,
like, oh, it's
of course.
liver, right? Like no
Yeah.
problem. So
Sure. Well, before we jump into like maybe some of those self-care things that people could
yeah.
definitely take away from this call, I think you mentioned something important, which is you start with lifestyle. And I've heard from time to time, I mean, obviously acupuncture has a proven success record for headaches and migraines, so no question
Mhm,
there. But I do hear from time to time, like, oh, I tried that and it didn't do anything for me.
mhm.
But I don't know if there's this misconception that acupuncture or Chinese medicine is just the part where you lay on the table.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
I don't know their whole story,
yeah.
like if they were not told anything else, maybe there's something lost in translation, or they just didn't do that part. Because a lot of times people go to like
Sure.
even physical therapy and then they go home and don't do their exercises. Of course, it's not going to work.
Well, exactly. There's a lot of reasons why any therapy might not work. I like to cite a few things. Like first of all, a lot of acupuncturists fail to educate their patients about what to expect, because really it's a process of educating the body to do something different. So really you need a handful of visits in order to make that change. So you wouldn't go to 1/5 of an operation and then be like, well, that didn't fix my problem.
Right.
It's like you didn't follow through, right? You don't take one dose of antibiotics and decide that it's not going to work. It's like
Yeah.
it's not magic. It works by activating the body's self-healing process. And so, and life, likewise, what you do in your daily life every day is going to be more powerful than what a practitioner can do in an office most of the time.
Most of the
So,
time.
like barring an operation, like that pretty much it's like you can either work, if we think about Chinese medicine as essentially applied philosophy, there can, an acupuncturist could skillfully help reduce your migraines. But if you're still going back to your crazy life that is like
Yes.
asynchronistic with the rhythms of nature, and if you're pushing yourself too hard, if you're driving and striving, if you're eating the wrong stuff, it's like there's a limit to how powerful that medicine can be for you. And so part of it could be on the acupuncturist not educating the patient as to what to expect for treatment results. There are certainly practitioners who are not excellent, just as there are in every field. Like that there are people who are great at what they do. There are people who could do a better job. There is also there can be a mismatch between patient and practitioner. It can be a very personal thing. And so, and a lot of times people, because it's holistic medicine, they might not think to mention to their practitioner, oh, and by the way, I also have these other like things going on in my body, which might be really important for that practitioner in order to properly treat. So and it's also that, I'd say like everybody is different. I can't say that like in 100% of cases, any particular treatment is going to be 100%
No,
effective.
of course not. But I think
Yeah.
it totally in a lot of those cases, it probably comes back to if you don't fully understand like what was causing the imbalance and you keep
Mm-hmm.
living your life that way, then any treatment's just going to chip away at that and it's never
Yeah.
going to restore it. So you have to do the work too.
Yes.
And I've
Yeah.
gone to other, not just acupuncture, all kinds of practitioners where they kind of miss that part and don't tell me that. So I
Yeah.
imagine that happens all of the time
Oh,
and a
yeah.
false
Absolutely.
expectation about what a treatment can do. Now that we got that out of the way, and we
Yeah.
know that we
Mm-hmm.
have to like address all the lifestyle, even things like essential oils or acupressure points and
Sure.
stuff like that. That's kind of a quick fix, something to
Mm-hmm.
help you feel better, but you still have to
Yes.
kind of question everything and
Yeah.
re-examine like what's causing this craziness in my life and do I really want to keep doing
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons that I've moved from, I still work one-on-one with people, but that's really why I'm fired up about taking people through implementing what they know, right? Because so much
Mm.
of the time people get like, oh yeah, I know I need a stress reduction practice. I
Mm.
know I need to meditate. I know I need to eat better. I know I need to get enough sleep. But there's a gap between the knowing and the doing. And it's like, and so that, anyway, that's why I'm really excited about taking people through programs that actually help them implement those changes
Yeah.
and layer on the Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine perspective behind why you want to bother with some of these, because it just gives people another lens to look through. And the more that we understand how our choices matter and how our choices can actually either be medicine, neutral, or negative, then we can then we're really much more empowered to either continue living the way that we're living or not, or change something.
Yeah, totally. So let's leave people with something they can do right now or
Yeah.
next time they have a headache. So you mentioned your husband really benefited from peppermint specifically. Were there
Yep.
certain places he applied it?
Yeah, and
Tell
I'll
us
go
about
through that.
that. Okay.
I'll go through that. So there's many powerful points on the body, and of course, like I mentioned like the yang rising, liver yang rising as probably the most common cause of migraines. But we also think like it also doesn't have to be that, right? Like an acupuncturist is going to do a differential diagnosis and treat the individual, not the condition. So a lot of what I'm saying is like it could be really on target for you, or it might be a little off base if you've got a different thing going on, right? Because I'm speaking in generalities, and obviously a particular diagnosis is going to be much more beneficial. But these are things that typically help, like that, and make their way into the majority of treatment plans that I have for my patients. So with that caveat, I will show you where a few acupoints are, and recognizing too that there's always infinite strategies to reach the same treatment
Yeah,
therapeutic goal. And a lot of these important points are actually on the feet. And rather than contort myself, I mean, I do practice yoga, but I'm not going to like lift my foot up
on
to here to
camera.
show you where these points are. So instead of that, I actually have a special gift for this audience, particularly, which is going to brodiewelche.com, Brodie with an IE, Welche with a CH, /migraine. And you can actually get a tip sheet that will include some important points on the feet that we're not not going to be able to talk about, as well as some of the points that I will share right now about just specific locations of acupoints, so people don't feel like they have to be like writing this down right
take
now.
notes. Yeah, just
Yeah,
watch
exactly. Although by all means, go for it. All right. So one point, that migraines typically show up on the side of the head, right, or behind an eye, and and that's so really. So one point that is great for one-sided headaches and behind the eye headaches, for regardless of cause, is a point called Tai Yang, and this point is located if you kind of move from the corner of the eyebrow back into the temple about 1 inch. There's sort of a soft spot there. So yeah, a little lower than where you are, it looks like. Yeah. So kind of like if you kind of come online from the corner of the eye and the eyebrow, and you kind of make a little cat, like a cat eye for yourself, then you're in like a soft spot above this bone here. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a point called Tai Yang. That would be a point to massage gently, especially in circles. And circles going away from the midline tend to be like more dispersing, more like moving the energy out. Also could be a good place for essential oil, but it might be too strong because it's so close to the eye. So another place that I think is wonderful using in the moment is actually at the back of the neck, right where this trapezius muscle right here, where this comes up and intersects with the skull, is a point called gallbladder 20. And I'll turn around so that is visible.
I need a picture of this too.
Got it? Okay.
Like on the hairline there?
Yep. It's just kind of at the base of the skull. But all these points exist on both sides, and I would say like use whichever side you want. But typically, if it's on the left, I like to go on the left, or if it's the right, same deal. There's some. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You can do both sides. It'll still be helpful. So gallbladder 20, self-massage can be awesome there. That's a wonderful place for peppermint oil. Another two places, like especially if it feels like migraines that are triggered by like weather changes or like that, or the environment. If something happens from the outside world and it's making you have a headache, then there's 2 points in particular that, or actually 3 that I'll show you that I really like for that scenario. So one is a point called stomach 8, which is located at the corner of the head. So obviously if your head is not a cube, but if it were, kind of like you just square off your head, it's about 1/2 inch into the hairline, like in line with the side of your head. There should be a tender spot up there. So these locations that I'm giving are like the zip code of like where to find these points, but where they actually are on a given human being is going to be the actual like physical street address. So like that's where you start hunting around for the point that's like, ooh, yeah, that's definitely it. Yeah. So if you find something kind of in there that's a little bit more tender than the rest, then that's a good point to anoint with peppermint.
So that's if something's from external. So how about like if you are kind of overwhelmed with like the smells in an Uber? Like
same deal. That counts as something from the external environment that's coming into your life and messing up your ecosystem. Gallbladder 20 is also really good for that scenario. Gallbladder 8, which is 1 or so inches above the apex of the ear. If you fold your ear in half,
my gosh.
right above the cartilage, right above the high point of the cartilage, basically. That's a point that can release the whole side of the head. And stomach 8 is really great to release the front of the head. But yeah, both of those are kind of like they're in the yang part of the body. Gallbladder 20, like basically it kicks out stuff that's coming in at you.
Okay.
So, and then 2 other points that I can show you for really headaches of migraines, regardless of cause. But the next one is Sanjiao 5 or triple burner 5, which is I won't get into what triple burner means, but basically it's on this channel that moves that links up the head to the hand. So from the outside of the wrist, we go 2 widths of your thumb up from the crease, right? So if the crease is where our wrists flex, we're right in the middle of the 2 bones, about 2 thumb widths up. That's a point called triple burner 5 or Sanjiao 5. And it's the point name is outer gate. So basically if it's coming in from the outside, outer gate is what you want to open to get it gone, so just like chasing an invader from your yard, that get off my lawn point. So that's a point you could use again with peppermint oil, potentially. Marjoram is also really nice. It's marjoram is really great for neck pain for whatever reason. It's like, and like the liver wind phenomenon.
Really? That's
Yep.
so good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And then, of course, a lot of people are familiar with the headache point. And
Mm.
in Chinese medicine, large intestine 4 is the headache point. And I'll show you how to access it. And I'll show you a common mistake people make when accessing it. So the point itself is located on the web of the thumb, kind of,
Oh,
or like near the web
okay.
of the thumb. Basically, if you smush your hand together, if you smush your thumb together with the rest of your hands, you'll notice that there's a high point of the mound of your hand.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's basically like at the high point of the mound, but right against the bone of your index finger, right against that metacarpal right there. So it's about a halfway point,
Mm.
but of like the knuckle to the end of the bone. So right there. And if you're just pressing with like a flat palm or with a flat thumb pad, you're not really accessing the chi of the point. If you picture that the point is like a vase shape, so it's got like a small top but a big wide body, you want to make sure you're getting into the vase, right? If you're just putting like a book on top of the vase, it's not going to work, right? You've got to have something that's narrow enough to get inside the point and it's chi. So it's much better to use a perpendicular thumb to support the back of your hands and to press down. Feel how different that is?
Yeah.
In accessing the point, can you find something kind of juicy in there,
Yeah.
like something that feels like, ooh, like that feels like it's kind of, you can almost imagine it draining energy down from your head,
Okay.
if you use that. So those are a few points. Oh, and another one that's really excellent, you don't want to use large intestine 4 if you're pregnant. Just, I'll put that caveat in there, because it's so downward moving, and that's the wrong direction for pregnancy, right? Like, we want to be holding things up and in with pregnancy. And
Okay.
so it's yeah, it's one of those that, like, don't wail on it too much if you're pregnant. And same with gallbladder 21, which is right here at the tops of the shoulders. So if you go from the sternal notch right in the center of your
Mm.
midline to the outside of your shoulder, and then you go half that distance and right on top of the shoulder, or like if you just cut your torso in half and then in half
Mhm.
again, karate chop down from the top, it's going to be that point right at the very top of the trapezius. And it responds really well to self massage, especially if you kind of raise your elbows up and then press down.
Down.
And so that's another one that really moves the chi downward in a pretty powerful way. And actually, both of those points I would use like in the treatment of helping somebody labor,
Yeah.
like all that. So
Really?
yeah. So
Okay.
but with this point, because they are very downward moving, and that's what we want to do with a migraine, is send the energy downward and ground it. So those are a bunch of points that are pretty easily accessible and
Yeah.
that you can use with acupressure or with essential oils. And again, you want to be really spare with the essential oil. A little goes a long way. You could even apply just a
Right.
toothpick's worth.
Yeah.
Like, it's just about a matter of getting the body's attention, and we're
Mm.
using the energy of the plant and the inherent knowledge of the point that the body has to have this synergistic effect. So that can be really good. And if we just want to think about where the gallbladder channel goes, it's like, here's gallbladder 1, gallbladder 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So like really this whole line down around here, you
That's
could
why
just
you'll
kind
just
of,
see people massage the whole line
yeah,
here
like you could just do
to be
that,
safe.
like just
If in
this
doubt, do the
that
whole
kind of,
thing.
yeah, exactly. Like, you could just do that sort of diagonal, like static finger pressure, little circles down and then around to your ear, down to the back of your ear, and then it kind of zips up and over. We already found gallbladder 20, gallbladder 21, da 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 da. And then and gallbladder 41, one of the points that you can get on the tip sheet is one of the most powerful points in the body, along with liver 3. So just and spleen 6. So you can either look
Okay.
those up
Yeah,
or
definitely get the sheet and print
yeah.
it out so you don't have to
Mhm.
think so hard when you're
Yeah,
not
totally,
feeling
right.
well.
Make
And
it
it's a good
easy
thing to
on
have in front
yourself.
of yourself. And then I mean, I've had good luck with peppermint. A lot of people like it, but I've also had a couple of people say that they don't like cooling
Yep.
things when
Mhm.
they have migraine. They're more of a heat person. Do you
Mhm.
see any link there with like peppermint and being too cooling or something like that, or it's not really?
Peppermint is cooling. And certainly with Chinese medicine, like that, there's, yeah, if somebody's very like deficient in, it doesn't have enough of the warming energy in the body, like, then yeah, they could feel like peppermint isn't necessarily great. Marjoram might be better, like that is a little bit more warm. Again, like, there's always more than one way to treat. And so and while the other thing that it would be, perhaps that person actually needs some nourishing and grounding of the yin. And so like, in addition to kind of something like peppermint that's like light and dispersing, like it has energy that does this, that person might really appreciate something that just does this, like that pulls the energy down and that roots them to like the bottoms of their feet, or to or that nourishes yin. So something like clary sage could be really nice, which is yin nourishing. Cedar could be potentially grounding, without being too cooling. Yeah. So, but definitely, like it's you raise a really good point that that the whole point is that we look at the individual, and that what's right for somebody might not be right for somebody else.
Okay, well, I'm excited for people to have this resource of things that they can try. I mean, I've only tried
Yeah.
one or two of those and found
Yeah.
really quick. So I know if you like sit
Oh,
there and
good.
spend some time, turn the lights
Hmm.
down and just kind of go through them
Hmm.
and take care of yourself, I
Hmm.
know it's going to really help. So
Yeah, you could
definitely
also, yeah, another idea with the peppermint is to make yourself a warm foot bath and
try.
put some peppermint in the foot bath, because again, that creates energy that's
Okay.
down low. It's like and it's creating, and peppermint's spicy, so it's like it really gets the body's attention. And so, but yet at the same time, you're in the warmth of the foot bath, and so like that could be a way of balancing things out.
Is that why peppermint is so popular? Because it's not so much the cooling; it's getting the attention to that area. Is that why it's really
It's it,
effective with points?
Well, I think that there's a few things going on there. Like it's in the class of herbs that release the exterior, which is another reason why, like, if you have a cold, like, okay, what are the herbs that we think of when you get sick? It's like you could have ginger, which is warming and spicy, so it opens the exterior to kick out your pathogen. But peppermint, same thing, is going to be cooling and opens the exterior to kick out your pathogen. So if you have a cold that is characterized by like a sore throat and a fever and yellow phlegm, you're going to want something that's cooling, as opposed to if you've got the kind of cold where you're shivering and you can't get warm and you're tired and you have like drippy snot,
Yeah.
then you're going to want something that's warming and like does the same thing. So this is basically how Chinese herbal medicine works. We look at what's out of balance in the body, what's the nature of the condition, and what is therefore going to be good medicine.
Okay. Well, clearly I'm having too much fun talking to you. I keep going on and on. Let's
It is a fun conversation. I enjoy
let's
talking to you too.
let's wrap up so people know where to find all of your information. Again, it's brodiewelche.com. Migraine.
Yep,
Migraine.
exactly. They can listen to me at A Healthy Curiosity, wherever you get your podcasts as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again for coming on and sharing all of this. It's definitely a lot of new points for me and new way of
Great.
looking at it. So I'm excited to go share this with everybody. And yeah, just really appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Erin. Anytime.